3DO.
They came from the depths of the void, an ancient enemy of an ancient people. No one knows why they hate us so, or why they have made war upon us. Some say the struggle against their evil is the mandate of heaven. Though their origins and purpose are shrouded in mystery, their plan is simple. They travel, they land, and then they conquer. Now, they are here on our world to do to us what they have done to so many others. And they will do it, unless someone stops them.
I see a way out! Valagar.
Come with me. You have much to learn before you can deal with the likes of those monsters. Since the arrival of devils, foul creatures and evil spirits have appeared throughout the land. These signs and omens can have but one meaning, that your destiny is part of the mandate of heaven.
Hello and welcome to episode 1 of my easy mode playthrough of Might and Magic 6 The Mandate of Heaven. I made 2 introductory videos to the series, one where I talk about my history with the game and what this playthrough is going to be about, and the second one where I go over basic mechanics. You don't have to watch them, this is the first episode that's going to show actual gameplay, although I don't know how much at this point. I may cut it very soon. So before I press the new game button, I think there's a bit of history lesson that's in order, because New World Computing and its leader John von Caneghem has made were the very first people who actually thought that making a persistent universe a good idea for a game series. You can see that this game is number 6 in the series, and it came out in 1998. The first games in the series date back to 1980s, although I don't know about them much because I personally haven't played them. But I know that due to this idea of persistent universe, Might and Magic 1 through 5 tell a single story. So all Might and Magic games, all New World Computing and John von Caneghem games in this series are set in the same universe. And it's just like episodes taking place in some parts of the universe. So, as I said, Might and Magic 1 through 5 is taking place in one, let's say, section, and the section that Might and Magic 6 takes place actually starts not with this game, but a few years earlier with the release of the first strategic game of the series, which was Heroes of Might and Magic. And the story of that game is that Morglin Iron Fist, strange name, but okay, comes to the land of Enroth. Doesn't matter really where he's coming. If you played Might and Magic 1 through 5, you might get an idea. But he comes to the land of Enroth, and by right of conquest, he takes the land for himself and crowns himself a king. Pretty standard for a medieval setting. Then, when he dies, his 2 sons fight for succession, One is good, his name is Roland, and the bad one is Archibald. And the succession wars are player can choose a side in Heroes of Might and Magic 2. Canonically, though, Roland is the guy that wins, and he stones his loving brother after his victory. So the good guys win again, right? Several years passed, and about 3 years before the events of Might and Magic 6th game, there is a bit of a problem brewing in the northwest of the continent, of the land of Enroth. I believe the first was this mysterious disappearance of one of the knights of King Roland, who was named Lord Kilburn. He disappeared around this town called Blackshire. And soon after that, an event called Night of the Shooting Stars appeared, and this is what we saw in the video introductory. The devils have come. Nobody knows from where or why they hate us so. But they have landed and they attacked the town of Sweetwater. And the 4 people that are displayed in the video that escaped from the carnage are our brave heroes who are rescued by Falagar. And for the next 3 years, he teaches them all he can to fight them back because he believes that they're a part of destiny. Now, in the meantime, during those 3 years, the devils start, let's say, spreading about, and King Roland finally hears about this. So he chooses 3 years before the events of the game start. He chooses to go towards northwest to settle several things. First is to find Lord Kilburn and what happened to him. Second issue is appointment of a new mayor in Blackshire. And third is to see what those reports of devils attacking Northwest are about. So he sets with a party of about 500 men and 2 advisors slash mages, one named Tanir and the other named Solomon, the Master of Air. The details of this excursion are shown in the manual as 5 letters of King Roland to his wife Catherine. Catherine, by the way, is the daughter of a king of Verathia, and they have a son called Nikolai. So the letters show that the King Roland has arrived in Blackshire, but on the way, even though it's July, there were some freak weather and snowstorms pestering them along the way, so he's become very paranoid. So he arrives in Blackshire and appoints a new mayor, but then he receives a messenger with a map with Lord Kilburn and a big cross on it. So he suspects a trap, obviously, but since he's a very brave man, he sets out to see what's going on. He wanted to see what the devils were about anyway. So I don't think he thought he was well prepared for this journey. So on the way, he spots some devils, and in his first battle he's victorious, and he chases after them. Unfortunately, devils turn out to be a much greater number, and they're ambushed. So King Roland has to withdraw, and he holds up in a castle called Castle Kriegspire, where he prepares for defense and writes a letter. Well, I think the last letter to his wife is that she should tell Wilbur Humphrey, who is his, let's say, the second in command, to gather an army and rush towards Kriegspire to relieve them. He entrusts those letters to Solomon, and then Solomon is sent on this envoy message. This envoy. Unfortunately, we don't know what happened at Castle Kriegspire, and the letters and Solomon never arrived at Castle Ironfist, which is the seat of the power. So that was 3 years ago. About a year after, the king of Verathia died in mysterious circumstances, and Catherine went to attend his funeral. And what happened there is actually detailed in Heroes of Might and Magic 3. which is then followed by Might and Magic 7 and 8. So there's this crossover between the strategic and the first-person RPG part is quite nice. The story seems to be very consistent. And this is where we are. So King is missing. Nobody knows what happened to him. Catherine, the queen, is gone to attend her father's funeral. So what's left is Nikolai and Wilbur Humphrey acting as a regent. And this is where our party comes in. So we travel to the town of New Sorpigal, which is as far away from Sweetwater as Falagar's magic could take us. And this is where our journey begins. So let's begin our quest to save.
Having cheated death during the night of shooting stars, you find yourself as far from your village of Sweetwater as old Falagar's magic could take you. 3 years have passed while Falagar imparted what knowledge he could to train you in your chosen professions. But the time came at last when he could teach you no more, and you have ventured into the world to seek your fame and fortune. Now, a world away from your lost home, you have stumbled across evidence of a terrible conspiracy involving a new religious cult. 5 letters from King Roland to his wife Catherine, and a letter from the King of the Devils to a wicked traitor named Sulman have turned up in an abandoned goblin camp. Your fate seems inextricably bound to these letters and that awful night, and your role in the events to come may be larger than anyone could imagine. The tools you have are but a small sum of gold, your wits, and a lot of potential. The roads ahead are infinite, and all the choices are yours to make. So choose wisely. Good luck.
So now we know what happened. On our route to New Sorpigal, we found an abandoned goblin camp, and among its ruins, a body of the Master of Air, 5 letters from King Roland to his wife, and a letter from King of the Devils to Solomon. So turns out that he was a traitor who was basically sabotaging the whole party, and he never intended to return to Castle Iron Fist to gather army for relief. So turns out King Roland trusted the wrong man. So this is, let's say, the point where we our heroes intercept the story of the mandate of heaven, because we have now these letters and we have to do something with them. And the game is very good into not telling you what to do. This is a thing I find very nice about old games. You have, let's say, no way of knowing what to do next. You just come in with very little information and you have to create your own story. So this is one of the reasons where I found this game so compelling, and it's still my favorite game. So let's create a party, which is the first thing we should do. As I said, the party consists of 4 members, and the party that you see before you is Paladin, Archer, Cleric, and Sorcerer. This is the most balanced party, I would say, in the whole game, from, let's say, the beginner's perspective, because you have the 2 powerhouses, Sorcerer and Cleric. Both of them can learn very powerful magic. One is dedicated to destruction and support magic in air and earth. A Cleric heals your whole party a lot. On that, you have 2 people which are combination of might, and in case of Paladin, healing, and in case of Archer, might and magic. So Archer can learn air, fire, wind, and water magic, but he also has, let's say, more hit points than the sorcerer will ever have. The same is for Paladin. He is like a supporting healer, but his main role really is to swing a sword. The Archer is a very important, let's say, beginning character, and one that if you're playing the game for the first time, you should not go without. The reason is simple. When enemies get very close to you, they start hitting your people, and you can die very easily. So archer's role at the beginning is to pick them off at the safe distance. Basically, the tactics used is to pull some enemies away from the group and then shoot them with an archer. If they get too close, then you have to be sure that they're severely weakened so that your paladin can finish them off. Cleric and sorcerer are, as far as fighters are, they're pretty useless at the beginning. Sorcerer is a bit less useless because he can use fire magic, which is based on destruction. But since I'll be using a bit of a Easter egg at the beginning, which will make the game much easier, this is an easy playthrough. I will not choose this party. My party will consist of a knight, a paladin, and these two remain. So first thing, obviously, what you need to do is to name your characters. So for this playthrough, I've chosen characters from Irish mythology. So my knight is gonna be named Cuchulainn. He's one of the most, well, I forgot to press enter, of course. Cuchulainn. He's a famous Irish mythological hero. So cleric is gonna be the wife of Cuchulainn, Emer. Our sorcerer is gonna be called Aoife, and let's say she has also history of Cuchulainn. As far as I understand, she was part of the tribe that lost, and as part of the deal, Cuchulainn demanded that she bears his son. Well, right now it's a guy, but we'll change that soon enough. And finally, since it's Irish mythology, and I like Enya very much, so E-I-T-H-N-E. Let's call our paladin Enya. Yes. So now we can adjust the portraits of our characters. So each of them has their own voice pack, which is extremely nice for a 1988 game to have a portrait, and this portrait is actually reacting to what's happening on the screen. And each portrait has its own voice pack.
Choose me or suffer.
So you can hear the different voices.
I'm ready. How about it's me?
Let's help you.
But
Choose me.
since he's an Irish
Pick
hero,
me. You gotta
obviously
pick me.
he has to have
Hey, choose me.
red hair. So, let's start with Emer.
Take me with you.
I'm the.
You want to? Come on. Hey, you gotta pick me. Let's help.
Choose me.
Choose.
How about me? Take me with you.
I think Emer would look more like this. Enya has to have black hair,
How about
obviously.
me? Choose me.
And Aoife, who's apparently is Irish for beauty, has to be.
You ready? You got. Hey, I'll
Say-
pick me.
I'm ready. Choose. It's me you want. Are you
this
ready?
Portrait. So, I actually never used this portrait ever. So I'll be hearing this voice back in a playthrough for the very first time. So after that, we have to redistribute some bonus points. We have 550 bonus points between all our characters. Now for the easy mode, within the first 10 minutes of the playthrough, I'll be getting plus 20 to all of these stats. So I have written down let's say how my party is gonna be redistribute these points. So I'll do that quite quickly if I can, and then talk about what I did. So Knight doesn't need any intellect and personality because he never has any spell points, but he needs a lot of might, which deals with melee damage, and endurance, which translates to hit points. So accuracy is also quite important because that's the probability of him actually hitting something. Speed, luck, might. Paladin is our secondary swinger, so since he has some magic that depends on personality, he also needs this. A bit of endurance, accuracy. Speed. Yes, have more speed. Luck. Emer, cleric. So, a bit more might. You don't need any intellect. Personality to 20. Endurance to 15. Accuracy. Speed. Luck. And finally, Aoife. 1, 2, 3. Sorcerers depend on intellect for their spell point, that's why she's getting 20. You don't need personality. Endurance to 15. Accuracy. I have to subtract from luck to get that, and speed. So, as I said, might is how much damage you deal in combat. Intellect, personality, mostly I'm using for spell points. Endurance is how many hit points your character has. Accuracy, how accurate he swings. Speed is it actually does two things, not only the rate at which your character recovers from attack, which I'll show soon enough, but also it increases armor class. And what's armor class, I'll say again in a few minutes. Luck. Now, luck is an interesting stat because it adds to resistances. But there are actually two gimmicks. One, I already said, we're gonna have plus 20 to all stats pretty soon. But also in Usurpigal, there is a well that gives plus 2 to luck each time you drink from it. But it only it only works if you have less than 15 of the stat. So if your luck is, let's say, 14, you can get to 16. But if your luck is 15, you'll not get any effect. And you can only use it 8 times. Yep. So before we get our plus 20s, we will be drinking from that well and increasing our luck stat a bit. Now, you can see that I put all the, let's say, the skills onto multiples of 5 wherever I could. That is because if you watched my previous video where I detailed the mechanics of the game, that's where the thresholds occur at that level. So above 25 you get plus 1 to your stat modifier every 5. So so if, for example, I put might at 19, after my plus 20 I would get only 39, which would not give me additional plus 1. So this this distribution is centered on the fact that I want to maximize the bonuses from the very start. So the last thing we have to do is to redistribute skills. As I said in my previous video, you have 2 starting skills. For knight there's sword. So for each skill there's a skill, let's say skill points assigned to the certain skill, and the skills can be upgraded twice, from normal to expert to master. So for sword, skill is added to attack bonus. For expert, this skill reduces recovery time, and master lets you go on the Miyamoto Musashi route, where you can dual wield swords for additional damage. Knights start with leather, and this is the worst type of armor. So there are 3 types of armor: leather, chain, and plate. Unfortunately, knight starts with leather, so it's good that you have additional armor class at the beginning, but this is not the skill that I'll be ever upgrading. Sorcerers are the only class that can never learn any chain or plate, so leather for them is very good, and I'll be learning that very soon. So, and usually for leather armor, each skill increases the armor class. For expert, the recovery penalty is reduced and penalty is limited. Penalty refers to the fact, for example, that if you have, let's say, a shield in your left hand, that increases the penalty. For each action there is a certain amount of, let's say, points that get added to the counter, and if your character has, for example, a shield, then that incurs additional penalty to the recovery, and the leather armor reduces this penalty or eliminates it. So for my knight, I'm going to be picking up bow and disarm traps. So bow, obviously, to pepper enemies from afar, and disarm trap is quite useful at the beginning because there are many traps that can ruin your day, and if your party is low on hit points, it can really, it's an easy way to lose a game unknowingly, because you never know which. The game randomizes traps and randomizes the loot, so you never know where you might need it, and having it at the beginning is very useful, especially if you have somebody that you can dump all your miscellaneous skills onto. So Paladin starts with sword, I talked about, and also he has spirit magic. So I never used any other weapon for my might classes other than sword. I thought that the dual wielding is powerful enough that I wouldn't need anything else, but after looking at some numbers and in the spreadsheet there's actually a listing of all the weapons, I decided to go on a bit of adventure and actually use spear and shield for my paladin. So spears are very interesting because you can see that in the normal skill you already have attack bonus attached to it. Sorry, that's not what I want to say. You can see that the mastery, the skill is to attack damage directly. So if you have your skill is at 10, you get 10 more damage. You don't get that with sword. And additionally, experts also add the skill value to armor class. This is not the modifier, this is just the skill. So, and shield, you can use spear with a shield. Although if you use spear two-handed, you get additional damage, which when you see a spear, I'll show you how that works. But shields, I very rarely used shields because I was mostly using dual wielding people, but they offer each high level item can be enchanted with some awesome magic. So I'm gonna see with this easy mode playthrough how I feel about this. I never used this combination spear plus shield, so it's gonna be a new experience, but that's what we're here for. Now my cleric is gonna get shield and meditation. So shield I already talked to. Mace is not the best weapon, but it's the best weapon that clerics can get, and you can see that attack damage is already at an expert level. Chance to stun, I never paid attention to the stun, so I'm not really sure if mastering this skill is necessary, although I usually do it. Body magic deals with healing, curing, and curing disease. Curing disease and poison you can see in the description there. Disease and poison are the bane of the beginning of each and every playthrough. All the at the very first map you get diseased so often and poisoned so often that it's a hell on earth. So having body magic is basic necessary. Although I don't remember if you can get cure disease at New Sorpigal. So shield I already talked about. We're not getting any armor skill, so having a shield already increases our armor class. And clerics can learn chain armor, so that's what we'll be going for. And finally, meditation. Meditation is the way to increase your spell points. So as you can read in the description, it's affected by the class bonus. If you remember my previous video, I did I showed a table where all those bonuses are listed. So clerics are gonna get plus 3 points, plus 3 spell points per 1 point of meditation. As there are resident healers and will need to be healing a lot, having more mana spell points is always useful. So that's what I'll be going for. And for hit points, let's say the corresponding skill is bodybuilding. So it does exactly the same. It increases your hit points by the class bonus for each and every point, and obviously experts and masters double and triple this effect. So this is our cleric. Finally, Aoife, the sorcerer. Aoife is gonna... Sorcerers, you must put points into magic. So they start with dagger, and basically there's nothing better that you can get for sorcerers. Sorcerers can learn stuff, but it's not as good a weapon. And as you can see, you can dual wield dagger already at an expert level. So daggers do very little damage, but having a second dagger in your left hand at your expert level is a major boost. And there is actually a hard-coded dagger that you'll be getting as one of the quests, which is quite nice. So stick with dagger. Triple damage is also very nice, although I rarely paid attention to when it happens. I might start with this playthrough. Fire magic centers on destruction, offensive spells. Firebolt, fireball, especially fireball, is the room cleaner of the early game. So for a sorcerer, mandatory air magic. Air magic contains the most useful spell of the beginning of the game, which is called Wizard Eye, which allows you to see where the enemies are, and if you upgrade it, it can also show where the treasures are and some such. So it's very useful to peek through the walls to see if there's any hidden places that you haven't visited. So second skill for sorcerer, I'm actually to make this playthrough early playthrough work the way I want it. I'm gonna invest in water magic, which is as its description says, it's equally defensive and offensive. But I'm gonna need water walk very early on. Plus, learning magic skills usually is the most expensive, so having them at early, like you don't invest gold, you just start with them. Yep. So this is my party, and I think this has been recording for very long, so I'm gonna cut it very shortly. But first I want to go through the interface of the game. If you're not interested in or if you know the game already, you can basically now skip to the next video. So this is how the game looks like. I'm gonna yep. So this is the main window of the game. Okay. So on the top right you see the map of the area that surrounds us. Here is places for 2 NPCs that we can gather during our adventures. Then below that we have active party spells and 4 books, one with current quests. There's only one quest right now because we found those letters, and the quest is to show them to Andover Podbello. Who is that? I'll read the letter and you'll find out. There are some auto notes, which notes the potions that you have, fountains you found, obelisks that you found, seer guidance, and miscellaneous notes. Another is a map. You can see we are in the low southwestern part of the map of New Sorpigal, and we'll be exploring it very soon. Finally, calendar. So we are beginning our game on Monday, 1st of January, 1165. In New Sorpigal, the time is now 9 AM. It's very easy. So below we have our rest panel. So we have 7 food. Food is used to say the rest. I can't rest in turn-based mode. I'll show that later. And there is also the amount of gold we have, and then there's spell book and rest panel and quick reference. So I'll go for quick reference last, I think. And there is also save. So below there is our party of 4. You can see this hand. This hand means that I turned on the turn-based mode. So you heard that, let's say, the chime after the game loaded. That means that we have entered turn-based mode, and this is signified by this hand. So the game runs in 2 modes. There's let's say real-time, where you can actually move your party, and interact with. You can interact with anything anyway, but you can actually move outside of turn-based mode, and you can attack everything in the real mode. But in turn-based mode is where the real combat happens, because it stops time and allows you to consider your next move. You can see each party member has like a gem next to his portrait. This gem signifies the status, let's say, of the turn-based. So if the gem is green, your character can perform an action and there are no enemies nearby. If the gem turns yellow, you can still perform an action, but there are enemies nearby. And red gem signifies that the enemies are in the melee range, and at the beginning this means that you should run away. And when there's no gem present, then it means that it's not your turn. You are recovering from the last action. So each character, when you click on the portrait, it opens the window. There is like an awards panel. There's the inventory panel, which details the whole inventory, and you can move stuff around to your characters and between characters to, you know, I don't know how else to call it, but inventory management, yes? So, the next panel shows the skills. So, Enya has a sword, level 1, spear, level 1, spirit magic, 1 point into her shield, and no miscellaneous skills. Our Cocolan has 2 weapon skills, 1 leather armor, and the Sun Trap. And you can actually, in this panel, this is panel where you upgrade your skills. Currently, we have 0 skill points. And finally, there is the, let's say, the character reference. So here you can take a quick look at each of the characters. So Emer has Might of 10. You can actually read what each of those stats mean. Age, level, and experience. So the experience works very simply. To advance to the next level, you can see actually at the bottom there is it says how much experience you need to advance to level 2. This is not the feature of the original patch. This was added by Greyface, and this is already implemented in Might and Magic 7 and 8, because otherwise you have to guess. But the formula is very simple. To advance to the next level, you take your current level, multiply it by 1000, and add it to the threshold. So for example, hypothetically, we start with experience 0. So to advance to level 2, you need 1000 experience points. And when you advance to level 2, your threshold then begins at 1000, and you need 2000 experience to advance to level 3. So the thresholds are 0, 1000, 3000, and then 6000, 10,000, 15,000, 21,000, and so on. It's very easy to make a spreadsheet, and I didn't show this spreadsheet, but it's a very easy system. Below we have, let's say, our weapon, like our attack tab. So attack bonus. So how attack means how likely we are to hit a character. There is a formula for that, and I will not show it here. I will show it in the next playthrough. But it's quite simple. Damage. How much damage will we do with our club? Our club does very little damage. Since we have no bow anyway, we can't shoot anyway. We can't shoot a bow, but this is our modifier to the chance to hit with a bow. Then we have hit points, spell points, and armor class. So armor class comes obviously from things like shields. You can see this one has armor plus 4. Leather has armor plus 4, and if you remember the descriptions, there's also a skill modifier. So what armor class does is lowers the chance of enemy monsters actually hitting you. There is a very simple formula that describes the chance of monsters hitting you, and the higher armor class you have, the lower the chance is. Next is the condition. We'll see poison disease very soon, and there's also a quick spell tab which you can set with your spellbook. There's also your resistances. So Knight starts with 10 resistances, 10 magic resistance, because he has no propensity for magic anyway. So let's say this is the basic basics of the interface. And now the final thing I want to show you is this is something that Greyface mod added, the mouse look. In the original game, you had to walk with your up and down arrow keys, and you turned around using your left and right keys. So this was pretty cumbersome and not really something that people playing games in 21st century are used to. So Greyface added mouse look, and you can use your mouse to move around. Now in the middle mouse button switches the mouse mode from mouse look to free mouse, and this is how we how I was able to move around. Yep, so mouse look is very useful, and since this is the first time I'm playing with this patch, this will also be the first time I'll be playing with mouse look, but already through my testing found it very useful. With right click you can like it say, investigate things from afar. You can see every character has their name, and the green bar below them is their hit points. The longer the bar, the more hit points the character has, and the character hit points depend only on their on the monster level. So these are very low level, but as we progress through the game, you'll see much longer bars, which denote higher amount of health points. And there is a formula for this that I also have on my spreadsheet, and I'll not be showing it in this playthrough again, because this is not what this playthrough is about. So I think I spent enough time babbling about history and you know, character description, interface description. I said this would be the first episode featuring gameplay. I guess I lied. I'll actually start playing the game in the next episode. So let me just save. These are all my, let's say, testing saves. Let's see, episode 001. Alright, thank you for watching, listening, and I'll see you in episode number 2.